And so as far as my role in the family, it's just being the one that keeps the home running smoothly.
Hello everyone and welcome to Happily Ever Reality. Today we are talking about becoming sister wives, and we are in part 3 of the book, which is titled Family, and we are in chapter 11. And chapter 11 was written by Christine Brown. I'm just going to jump right into this. Christine starts off her chapter by talking about how all of the wives are different, but they have learned to come together when it comes to parenting the kids. She believes that the different parenting styles and perspectives have helped contribute to having well-rounded and well-adjusted children. So that's the first paragraph. But then right in the second paragraph of this chapter, she brings up the furniture issue. And I can't help but think that this was a lot bigger than we even can imagine, because it just keeps getting brought up over and over again in this book, and it was brought up on the show. Christine says that none of the moms permit jumping on furniture, but Mary's couches will end up lasting a lifetime. Janelle's will be broken in a month, and her own couches are going to get really dirty, while Robin's couches are going to stay very clean. The point she is making is that they all have the same rules, but the way they enforce them is very different. And she gives another example of how they all have the same rules, but they have different enforcement. She says that every house has the rule that there's no eating in the living room, but Mary's living room is spotless without a crumb. Janelle's has food spots on the carpet and couches, and in her own home, she will find wrappers and plates shoved in the cushions and under the couches. Robin also finds wrappers, but not nearly to the extent that Christine does. So when I was reading that, what I took away from it is that some people actually enforce the rules and some people don't enforce them that well. And this is something that's been brought up a few times throughout the book. They just discipline very differently. And I think it's worth pointing out that Mary only had one child living in her home, so her house probably didn't have the wear and tear that Janelle's and Christine's did. So I think that is also an important part of this. It's easier to discipline one child because there's just not as much chaos going on, and there's not as much noise and movement when there's just one kid in the house versus the moms that have 6. It's just a different situation. So I'm sure some of it was discipline and some of it was just what their home lives were like. So Christine starts out this chapter by talking about their differences, and she says that this works out really well for the kids because it allows them to connect with each mother differently. She points out that Isabel likes to spend time with Mary, and that was something that Mary mentioned in her chapter about family. She says she really connects well with Isabel. And then Christine says that she really connects well with Hunter, which is Janelle's son, and that Mykelti and Robin are very close as well. She says that Robin just seems to get Mykelti. Christine makes a point of saying that all of the wives take time to try to connect with their own children and the children from the other mothers. Christine says when it comes to her own kids, it's important that she has one-on-one time with them, and she enjoys reading and playing games with her kids. She also likes to organize events and do things with the children. This is something that we saw on the show. Christine really likes to start traditions and plan things for the holidays. But she also likes to do simple things like go and get ice cream or rent movies and have movie nights at home. Christine spends a lot of time with her kids, and she feels like this helps her be really tuned in to what their needs are. She also says that it helps her decide what punishments are realistic on a case-by-case basis. And she gives a few examples. She says if Aspen leaves the car a mess, she'll have Aspen clean the car and vacuum it as a punishment. When Peyton gets bad grades, she won't let him play on the Xbox. I think all of those are very reasonable punishments. There was only one example that stood out to me, and she said when Isabel is a brat, she won't let Isabel spend time with her. The only reason I'm pointing this out is because we've heard Mary say that sometimes Isabel comes over to her house, and we saw it on the show as well. And it's the same thing with Christine talking about it. Both in this book and on the show, Christine has pointed out that her and Isabel just don't always get along that well. She doesn't always like Isabel's attitude. So I thought it was interesting, Peyton has a very specific thing, like he gets bad grades. Aspen leaves the car a mess. But Isabel, it's just being bratty. It's just having a bad attitude. And it doesn't work well with Christine. And so there is this punishment, and I'm not going to spend time with you. And when I first read it, I was like, well, that her being bratty might be because she needs attention, which is true. That could be the reason, but it could also be because she's tired or overstimulated or had a bad day at school, and then she just comes home and has sort of a bad attitude. And maybe Christina's like, you know what? I'm not going to be around you if you're going to be rude to me. Go take a nap. Go have some alone time, and then come back with a positive attitude. I've definitely said that to my own children when they are really tired and grumpy. You know what? I do not have to put up with you being rude to me. If you need a nap, if you need to go write in your journal, if you need some quiet time, go do it and come back. Leave the bad attitude in your bedroom. Like, don't bring that out here to me. So I'm hoping that is what she means. And not just, I'm not going to spend time with you. It read very weird. Like when I read it, I was shocked that she put that in there. But it's clear when Isabel was young, her and Christine had some rocky times. Christine says that there is a major problem she has with parenting her older girls. She says that they wear clothes that sometimes have very low necklines. And she says that all of the adults in the family agree that dressing modestly is important, and even the suggestion of cleavage oversteps the boundaries of what they consider appropriate. If you go back and watch those earlier seasons of the show and then you watch later, you can see in the beginning they were definitely dressing in a style that went along with Christian modesty culture at that time. There was a lot of layering shirts, so there was no cleavage, and there were higher necklines. So that was what they were doing when this book was written. Modesty was still very, very important to them. Even though they all agree that modesty is important, Christine says that the way they would handle the neckline situation is very different. Christine says that Mary would never have let the girls buy the t-shirts to begin with. Janelle wouldn't even notice that the neckline was low until it was unbelievably drastic. Robin would give them a lecture on purity, and Christine says that she just groans and tells them to change their shirts. She said at one point, though, she did try to hide all of the shirts that had low necklines, but then the girls just keep getting more. When it comes to parenting the teens, it's not just modesty that is really important to them. They also felt like they had to agree on dating. Christine says that their children cannot go on one-on-one dates until they're 18. They can go on group dates once they're 16, but anything before that can just be hanging out with friends. There's not to be any one-on-one things, no boyfriend, girlfriend stuff at all before 16. And Christine says that sometimes this can get a little bit blurry. And she gives an example of a situation with Mykelti. Mykelti wanted to go to a dance with a boy. And Mykelti told Christine and Cody that they were just friends. But at the time, Mykelti was only 15. But she assured them that she in no way at all had a crush on this boy. He was really just a friend to her. And in order to make sure that that was true, Cody and Christine first went through her phone to check and make sure that there were no text messages that implied that she had a crush on this boy or that he had a crush on her. And then once it was clear that they were just friends, Mykelti was allowed to go to the dance with the boy. I really don't know how I feel about that. I understand that they don't want them to date, but I think going to a school dance with a person one time, I don't know. I don't think I would be super concerned about that, but you guys can let me know in the comments what you think of them going through her phone and not just believing her. I don't know. I have such mixed feelings about that. It's not something I would do personally, but knowing that they were very involved in their faith still at the time of writing this book, and they really wanted to enforce those rules. I mean, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal, but again, I don't know. You guys can let me know about that down in the comments. What do you think? Now, even though they're strict when it comes to dating and modesty, they were surprisingly lenient when it came to social media. So you have to think back to 2011, 2012, around the time this book was written. Christine says that they did allow the kids to have access to social media, but they tried to monitor it. She said the kids had their own Facebook and Twitter accounts, and there was a family YouTube channel and a family web page. Now, with that being said, Christine makes the point of saying that she doesn't want the children to go on blogs that are written about the show, because sometimes the things that are said can be very hurtful. She said one time Aspen went on a website and read some negative things about Robin, and Aspen then went onto this website and tried to defend her. And according to Christine, Aspen said, "She is one of my moms, and I love her, and you don't know her. You think you know all of us just from watching us for an hour a week, and you judge us with just a small amount of knowledge." I do wonder how different the rules would be if all of this stuff, like if the family was still together and the show was starting, all of it was happening right now in 2024. I feel like they would have to try much harder to keep the kids off of social media, because I feel like the way we use social media is so much different now than it was even just 10 years ago. It feels like so much has changed. I think a lot of it being TikTok and short form content, it feels like that stuff is just in your face a little bit more than long form content, podcasts and blogs. I feel like you deliberately have to go looking for those things, where that short form stuff, the TikToks and the reels, it just comes to you and you don't even, the algorithm kind of guesses what you want to see, but it can be wrong and you can end up watching something you didn't even intend to watch or think about at all. So I do wonder what their rules would be now for the family. Christine says what Janelle and Mary both said in previous chapters. They said the kids like to go to the houses with the pools in the summer, and when the pool season ends, they all go over to Christine's house to hang out. And Christine loves that. She loves having the hangout house. She also says what Janelle said in her last chapter. They have grown to depend on each other and help each other. Janelle goes to work and Christine takes care of the house and the kids. They also help each other with shopping, errands, and meals. When it comes to them all spending time together, Christine says it just doesn't happen as much as it used to. It seems like they spend less time together now that they're in Vegas. So you have to remember that at the time of writing this, they had just made that move to Vegas. She says the kids go between houses, but the mothers don't really spend a lot of time together except on Friday and for their Sunday dinners. The family's changed a lot since they moved, and she thinks it's really sad because they just don't interact as often as they used to. And now when they do spend time together, it seems like it needs to be planned. At the end of the chapter, she says that she would like to move back into a house with a sister wife. Yes, you heard that correct. A sister wife. Not the sister wives. She says a sister wife. So that means just one of them. Christine says she misses the communal aspect of the plural lifestyle, and she wouldn't mind living with Janelle because they make a good team. She points out that their kids are close together in ages and they would love to be under one roof again. The only problem with this is that the house would need to be huge. And she says this is okay. This would all work out well because Mary and Robin really like having their own places, so she doesn't think they would care that they weren't living with her and Janelle. To me, it's just clear that even when they were writing this book back in 2011 or 2012, they were already divided. There was already a divide in this family. And reading it now and knowing everything we know, some of these things that they tried to act like weren't a big deal were huge issues for them. But to no surprise, Christine tries to make all the negative things sound positive. And she says that their family is a great example of a family in which some people want more closeness and some people want more privacy, and they find a way to accommodate everyone. Again, that's just something we see throughout this book. They're always trying to put this positive spin on it. And that was really what the beginning of this show was, right? They were always trying to put some sort of spin on what was happening to make it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal. And I just don't agree. I don't think that was really what was going on with this family. I think you had 4 women who had very strained relationships with each other, and they couldn't all live together anymore. But again, they're always trying to make it sound positive. And I think a little bit of that is Christine's personality, but I do think some of it was what they were trying to sell us in the beginning. Christine ends up ending this chapter by talking about what will happen next for the family, and she admits that she really doesn't know, and she wonders what it's going to be like when they're all empty nesters. The last sentence of the chapter says, "I'm sure whatever happens will be full of surprises as always." And that is it, you guys. That is Christine's chapter on family. You guys can let me know down in the comments what you think. If you like the video, please consider going up and clicking that like button. And if you haven't already done it, I hope you will subscribe here at Happily Ever Reality and come back. We're going to move on to Robin's chapter about family.